Coming up, the Brooklyn Nets put together a dominant performance with the home win over the Clippers 100-93. Yes, they lose Cam Thomas in the process, but that's what a Brooklyn Nets season is all about. We break down the win, all the big plays, why this team is so good early in the season in finding ways to manufacture success, coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Brooklyn, yo.
Yes, sir. It is the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the winning Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Armbrecht. We thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free on all those great platforms. We'll let you know today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50+ infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. And Doug, we've been waiting for this. We've been spitting a lot of optimistic narratives around this team as they've come up short in several games early. This one had all the energy of a team that, in spite of being depleted, was going to find a way to beat the Clippers at home.
What a win, man. I mean, like, this team, I'm being serious about this. How can you not root for this team? Even if you're just in the general NBA landscape and you are just checking in here for the first time on this Nets team, like, I don't know how you can't root for this story. They've lost everybody. Everyone gets hurt. And they're either fighting in every game or winning. Like, the losses have all been sort of dogfights, and the wins have also been fights, but they're now 4-4 on the season. Even with the best case scenario, I think it was sort of hard to see that coming. And now you're like, no Nick Claxton, no Cam Johnson, no Ben Simmons, now no Cam Thomas. And they pull out a win against the Clippers team that, yeah, they're finding themselves. They still got Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, James Harden, Russ Westbrook, Zoo. I mean, like, that's a real team over there.
Yeah.
And it's just next man up for this team. It's been like this since the jump. They're insanely fun to root for. And I just can't say enough. I mean, we're going to spend the next 30+ minutes, an hour gushing about this squad because it just doesn't matter who plays. They just play their heart out.
No, 193. And I mean, so much about this victory, the fact that you hold the Clippers to under 100 points, the fact that you only score 100 and you get the win, the fact that Jacque Vaughn leaned into the small ball lineup and found ways to still manufacture success on both ends of the floor. You mentioned all the guys that they were without. We will talk about the Cam Thomas injury, obviously, at the back end of this episode. But when you think about the roster that they put out there on the floor tonight and some of the guys they had to bring in, they lost, quote, I'm going to call it a loss. They won the rebound battle by losing it by 2, 51-49. They knocked down their perimeter shots. And frankly, I think a theme that has carried over now, even to the last game where they did lose, but the defensive identity, rhythm, and consistency, you're seeing that come together game over game. The rating isn't there yet, but we discussed as the eye test tells you that they're a problem. They are a problem. When you look over at the Clippers and you have Paul George and you have James Harden and you have Kawhi Leonard and you have a guy like Zubac who's just a problem by a sheer size situation, they should be able to solve so many one-on-one matchups that this shouldn't have been a game that the Nets are in. It should not have been a game that they were in by so many different metrics, and yet they get the dub. It's incredible. Like, I really, for 8 games into a season and a 500 basketball team, I've never been so excited to watch one.
Look, you know me, man. It's rare to get me up out of my seat, fist pumping in the living room, especially this early in the season. But I feel like the way the Nets are currently constructed, this is already like a little engine that could kind of situation with the way they're playing, the guys that they have out there. And it's not like it's so different with it's so different when your expectations change, right? When it was like the KD, Kyrie, Harden thing, expectations are different. You want the win every night, but there's sort of an implied understanding that you're supposed to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a totally different rooting energy around a team where the expectation might be that you are not expected to win, but we're desperately wanting to happen because that's why we root for sports. We want our team to win every single night. It gives a totally different energy with what's happening with this team right now when, again, there's gut punch scenarios here when Cam Thomas goes down. We're going to talk about that in a little bit here. But when these guys come in and you see that they're all playing for something, right? They're playing for the team. They're maybe playing for more playing time. They're playing for another contract. Like there's a bunch of different motivations going on for these guys, I think. And to watch it sort of unfold in real time, to me, it does have playoff atmosphere sort of vibes because the expectations are just different around this team. And that's the way I felt. I mean, really for the whole second half, but specifically for like the last 8 minutes of this game, when you're watching Trendon Watford and Lonnie Walker and these guys, even Dayron, out there fighting every possession, making it hard on the Clippers, every single possession, just doing every single thing they can. They just wanted it more. You just watch this team. They wanted that in the end. Like, I don't want to be over in Locked On Clipper streets right now, but just think about the difference in like that loss for them and this win for the Nets. That team, the Nets just wanted this game so bad, and that's shown through in nearly every possession for them, and that's why they won.
45-17. Once again, bench scoring for the Brooklyn Nets. Doesn't matter who you are, but if you start on the bench and you come into the game, you are going to score points for this roster. And then just to highlight it here, because we're going to talk about a lot of different moments and just some overall sequences. But the two critical things to me, Mikal Bridges doesn't have a great game. He has a putback bucket, though, off of a miss and played with a little bit of chippiness. Like, I think we need him to get to that place, even if it's just jawing with the refs a bit. And then Spencer Dinwiddie, for a guy that I had a thought where I was like, is he going to get in here for these late sequences? He had a terrible shooting night. It was a low key performance for him, just 26 minutes, hits a corner three like a dagger, as if he's been draining them all night long. Like that, there's something about this. And you see the energy from the bench too. Everybody to a man. The Trendon Watford jam that got waved off on review. How dare they take away that type of moment from the Brooklyn Nets fan base? But even as it didn't matter. Everybody was around him on the bench, giving him the chest bumps, the high fives. Like that energy is infectious, I think. And the right balance of veterans like Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal, some of these guys that have been there but still have a ton to prove, like you said, and then these young guys who, no matter what, always want to be going hard every single night. It is really just led to some incredibly, at times, gut-wrenching games early in the season, but then also awesome moments like this. So we're going to continue to go ahead.
I was just say gut-wrenching, but again, like put them in context, right? Like those are easily games that with the personnel that they had, that could have been double-digit losses.
Yes.
Right? Like, and they turned gut-wrenching because of how hard they've played every single game. Yeah, there's been some close losses here, and those hurt. Again, sometimes it's good to take a step back and look and say to yourself, let's look at the personnel that they're playing with here. If we knew that this was the team, what would our expectations have been around this team weeks ago? They would have been lower. Now, credit to the Nets here. They are raising everyone's expectation by fighting so hard every night, by actually getting more connectivity and all this other stuff. So I just want to like really paint the picture of the context around this stuff, because sometimes you can lose it really fast. You can lose the string really fast because you're watching the team every night and your expectation is that they're going to win. Take one step back and look at who the Nets are playing and who they're playing against. It makes the record even that much more impressive, even at 4-4.
Yeah, gut-wrenching, but in a very welcomed way, because you never thought you would be that close to have it hurt that bad if you lost to some of these teams. Meanwhile, obviously, with the Thomas injury that we'll discuss, you're probably going to be looking, if you dive into fantasy, you're going to be looking to find different ways to make up for some of those losses on your rosters. And our partners over at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd. You guys have heard us mention him before, to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. So whether you're prepping for the daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, as you may need to when injuries come up, every week we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. Doug, take it away with some of these fantasy picks of the week.
Yeah, if you're not following Josh over at Locked On Fantasy, I don't really know what you're doing. I'm hoping that you're already over there. He's got some great picks this week. I can just really co-sign on a lot of this stuff. One of them he has is Brandon Miller. He should be starting, or he continued to start because he started tonight for Terry Rozier. It was a little rough for him the first time he went out. It definitely improved a little tonight. The usage went up a tick, and if he's still sitting out there for you in fantasy, this is the time to really start getting into it, because I think you're going to start to see these minutes and the usage start to continue to tick up for Brandon Miller. Another guy that he had, and I can get behind this one too, Bismack Biyombo, kind of coming out of nowhere. Steven Adams injured for the Grizzlies. Xavier Tillman has gone down. Biyombo kind of got a out of nowhere spot start the other night, and then all of a sudden, bingo, it turns out that Memphis could really, really use him next to Jaren Jackson Jr. If you're playing fantasy, Biyombo's minutes feel incredibly safe. As we're taping this right now, he's actually closing in on a double-double. So you got really, really good picks here from Josh. If you're not following Josh, let's get on this train. And that's because Josh Lloyd and Fantasy Basketball, they want the team up to win your fantasy championship. eBay Motors knows the championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. It's the same with your vehicle. Over at eBay Motors, they got 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
All right. So as we continue to ride along with the 193 post-game podcast live on YouTube, where we always remind you guys, got to be over there because you'd be seeing us right now or listening to us later, wishing you had been there. So be sure you have all those alerts turned on so you can be on the action, as we always stick around after the podcast to chop it up with all of our Brooklyn Nets faithful. In this game, Doug, I mentioned there the 45 points off the bench. This is we do this a lot, I think, early in the season, even in the losses where we say, well, if I told you these players only had X, well, if I told you that Cam Thomas went down after 20 minutes of game action and 14 points with an injury, Dinwiddie had 7, Bridges had 10 points, O'Neal and Finney-Smith, who's been critical to this team early, combined for 24, you'd be hard pressed again against a team like the Clippers to say, yeah, so that worked out, right? We're probably up late in the fourth.
It'd be hard pressed. You'd be like, they lost by 25. Like,
exactly. And then club 2, here we are again, right?
Yeah, you would say, oh, those are the stats. That's what happened. They lost by 25. Let's see what happens next game. No, because, again, this bench has been absolutely incredible. I mean, the bench minutes, we went over this the other day with the net rating, and we were like, oh, the lowest net ratings on the team, it was like Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal, Ben Simmons. Now, I don't think it's any of those guys' fault. But the thing is, the bench guys have been so good for this team over the course of the season that it's really what's kept their head above water. And tonight, it was just the reason they won. Like, Lonnie Walker scores 21 tonight, 8 for 16 from the field in 28 minutes. He is now, let me just double check this. I'm pretty sure he's plus 36 for the season. I just had it in front of me, but I close it. He's plus, he's plus, he's plus 30 for the season. I mean, his numbers are absolutely incredible. Like, they just win. I was joking before. I was like, play him 48 minutes. They just win all of his minutes. Like, just play him the whole game. It exemplifies what's going on here. This guy comes in. He's on basically a veteran minimum contract. It's easily already one of the best signings at this cost for the whole entire NBA. Point stop. I mean, that's just it. Sean Marks just does it again. He's pulled these guys out of nowhere at times. And he's just one of them. And we can talk about Watford too, but it's again, the bench play and the guys that are coming in, there's so much confidence from this group. They all fit the system pretty well. They're all, he's been able to just really shoot the lights out, and you just really can't. I mean, that's why he's getting interviewed at the end of the game. You can't say enough about what Lonnie Walker's been doing.
No, and that was the 1-to-1, right? Cam goes down, and it's all right. More Lonnie Walker plays 28 minutes. You mentioned it. 21 points in 28 minutes, 8 of 16 from the field, 3 of 7 from deep. And it really is the part of his game, the ability to tack at the basket too, right? Because the Nets just don't have enough of that on this roster. And it does speak to Sean Marks and filling out this team in a meaningful way, where we said coming out of the offseason, hey, some of these guys are going to need to hit. Lonnie Walker hasn't just hit. This is, by the way, one of the most fascinating elements of the NBA to me. I never understand some guys that do or don't get contracts in free agency because, hey, I try to watch the tape. I try to study what the numbers tell me, but somebody in the NBA should know better what Lonnie Walker's true value is. And the Brooklyn Nets are like, hey, veteran minimum, why don't you come hang out with us? And you end up, this guy is going to be crucial for this team going forward. And he's already shown you early in the season that he's capable of that. In addition, you mentioned.
Wait, real quick. Let me just. I made a mistake. It's plus 56 for the season, so I just didn't.
I was going to say we're have to go up here. It's plus 10 again tonight.
Yeah. I misread. I was misreading the stats. So anyway, I know you wanted to change, but I didn't want to do my guy Lonnie Walker. Not the first, not the second, not the third, the fourth. Dirty right there. Plus 56 for the season. It's one of the better plus minuses in all of basketball. Just again, play this guy 48 minutes. Sorry.
I would also tell you that the first 3 Lonnie Walkers would not allow you to move on without acknowledging what his true plus minus was. Incidentally, too, it's not a knock on Spencer Din. We mentioned the clutch bucket. He was the only player for the Brooklyn Nets from the starters to the bench with a negative plus minus. The bench had +5 for Trendon Watford, +7 for Daron Sharp, who we need to talk about here as well, +5 for Dennis Smith Jr., and then +10, as we said, for Lonnie Walker. Trendon Watford. This is a reminder for me. When I know how smart I can be about some things, I need to go the extra mile. Incidentally, there are times when I can be wrong as well. But in the off season, when the Nets are looking to take flyers on guys, everything that Trendon Watford has from a skill set just seemed like, why not? He's young, he can shoot, he can handle the ball a little bit. And when he comes into this game tonight, 19 minutes, 3 of 6, knocks 1 of 2 from beyond the arc, gets to the line twice. He's a good free throw shooter, something that the Nets need as well. Oh, by the way, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals in this game. Now, he had 4 turnovers. We'll look past that tonight.
It's all right, but one of those turnovers was when he caught a PJ Tucker body, so we'll take it. Like, subtract one of those turnovers. It was an offensive foul. It doesn't count. He nearly ended PJ Tucker's life, and we don't count that. When we look at the end of the day, we don't count that as a turnover. We count that as 2 points because it's a crime that they took that away. Go ahead.
Counted as 10 points, probably, right? Yeah, and that included as well the energy that he brings and the skill set that he brings. You're good. You need guys like this when you have the veteran players that give you a certain expectation of consistency. Dorian Finney-Smith, a Royce O'Neal, even a Mikal Bridges to that extent, right? These guys all set the baseline. You need a couple of wild cards. He just comes in. The eye test tells you that he is destined to be a contributor coming off this bench over the course of this season. And I'm totally fine, by the way, with this kind of methodical approach that the coaching staff seems to be taking, even with the injuries. It's, hey, when it's your opportunity, we're going to give you the chance. And if you grab it and run with it, we will have a really hard time walking away from you. Lonnie Walker's already done that. And now Trendon Watford's entering that discussion.
For sure. I mean, he brings a somewhat similar skill set to Simmons. Not really, but it's slower. It's a little, like you said, a little more methodical, but he has size. He's a pretty good screener. He can handle the ball a little bit, like we're, call him Point Wofford as he was he did bring the ball up a few times, actually did a reset on a high pick and roll action to be able to get a switch, which they called out during the game. You like to see that. A couple little errors, but like whatever, man, like this guy, we saw it during the preseason that you could already tell during the preseason. You were like, oh, they have something here. Now the minutes weren't there to begin the year. I think that was probably fine, right? As like the team was mostly healthy to start. They're just going to play the guys they have. So I don't think there was like any crime that he wasn't playing early. But I think we all believed that in a long 82 game season that we would end up seeing Trendon Watford in some form or fashion, right?
Yes.
Like it was, I think that was like pretty clear. Sometimes these things take a little time to materialize, takes a little context, an injury, some bodies falling. But that was a guy that I said to someone online earlier today, I was like, there's a case to be made that he should start for Simmons, right? Like I think, and I don't think we're going to get all the way there on it with that, but what he brings to the game in the DHO stuff, in being able to just get after it on defense and get in front of guys, he can box out, he can rebound. And like I said, he has just enough handle and just enough 3-point shooting ability to do, he does enough things well, or like above average, that becomes a good player for you. And we saw that tonight. Like he was able to just do a lot of little things. If you did not watch this game, the box score would not jump out to you about Trendon Watford's game, but that's okay, because this is just like the kind of player he is. He's like sort of the consummate role player at this point on a team that needs like this exact guy in their current state. And I think we're just going to see more minutes, and that will be correct.
Let's talk about coming up here in a second, Royce O'Neal. And Doug, shocked to see a bounce back perimeter shooting performance for him. We'll also mention Daron Sharp, who really did some positive things here on both ends of the floor, which you're going to need him to do over the short term. So we'll get into that coming up here in just one moment. But before we do, we're going to tell you about the title sponsor of our show, which is, of course, Jase Medical. You've heard Doug talk about them before. In addition to all of the life-saving medications they can provide you, you can also now get a year's supply of erectile dysfunction medications too. I realized that no matter what, as we talked about before, supply chain issues, going on extended vacations, anything where you feel like there's going to be a disruption in your ability to get the medications you need for whatever needs they are, you don't have to worry about getting the refill of your generics of Cialis, Viagra, or any of those other prescriptions. And it's possible because of our friends at Jace Medical. You go online right now at jacemedical.com to receive a 12-month supply of your daily medication. Remember to use promo code locked on at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace. I'm thankful for the service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut my pills in half so that I know I would have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year's supply. I also ordered the antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you love would like to get peace of mind by having a year's supply of any of the daily meds available, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use promo code locked on for $20 off of your purchase. All right. Now, Doug, it's the other guys, because you don't get to a win like this against a team like the Clippers without having other dudes that did things in key categories. I'll mention just briefly on Day'Ron Sharpe. We talk about especially like Cam Thomas, and we're going to discuss his injury here too, how he's taken this seismic leap. Day'Ron Sharpe has not taken that seismic leap. However, last year, you couldn't have him on the court for any amount of minutes because the fouls were always so concerning. We still had some moments like that. But having Day'Ron be able to go 19 minutes, give you 11 points off the bench, give you 10 rebounds, came up with 2 steals. And here's another key category, just like with Watford, went to the line 3 times, knocked them down. Like, you need to have some of these players that can go in and bang bodies with Zubats and sometimes get a couple of key blocks. I really just liked what is always going to be, I think, a restricted sample on Day'Ron right now. He did a great job tonight. You needed him because they didn't have much size otherwise.
Going to tell you exactly what turned the tide on Day'Ron Sharpe in this game. It was very simple. Over in the Nets DM chat that we have a bunch of other Nets fans over on Twitter, I made the quote, Day'Ron's got to be one of the worst finishers at the rim. He never seems to know where the basket is, and it looks horrible every time it goes in. From that point on, he did not miss a shot, and he was like, I think it was minus at that point, so he was probably like plus 11 from that comment on. So you are welcome, everybody. It took my irrational in the moment complaining about Day'Ron Sharpe to move this guy from net negative to net positive. He was great. He was everywhere. Sometimes in a game, you do need like a little crazy out there, right? Like a little just kind of out of control, just energy, because actually what the Clippers didn't have. The Clippers, the Clippers had no energy, right? The Nets had way less skill, but way more energy. Day'Ron exemplified this, right? Like, it was just get up. I mean, to the point where he's stealing rebounds from his own team, because I think he's just out of his head, right?
I only got one task here, buddy. I don't care what.
And it's not greed. It's not like, this isn't DeAndre Jordan. I better get to my 10 rebounds. Like, this is like, I just don't. I'm just kind of like seeing stars here, and it's just all about just getting whatever I need to get. I did feel like that was the energy from him. I loved it. It was awesome. He had actually, I'm joking a little bit, but he was more in control on some of his finishes later in the game. Like, he definitely found the flow. He was able to stay on the court longer than he's been able to mostly stay on. Maybe that helps like sort of settle things down and get the rhythm of the game going a little bit more. Another guy that was just totally critical. Could have made a case to start him against Zoo. I think it was ultimately fine what the Nets did, because they really had a defensive strategy in this one that I thought didn't start off well, but definitely worked out well as it went. But overall, Day'Ron's just another guy. If you like to see this, because you got to make a decision on him at some point. Mm-hmm. And these are the games that make you feel like he can hang. It has not always been like that for him, but this one, he comes out on the positive.
He also went down awkwardly underneath the basket. Yeah. And this is the young body mentality where, I mean, you heard the smack live and he just kind of dragged himself forward a foot and then popped up. And it was like, okay, you'll be sore tomorrow, but you got the job done tonight. Before we talk Cam here, which we'll also discuss, I think, in more length when it comes to our Friday mailbag episode, we're going to have a lot of questions, I'm sure, coming in around him. Jacque Vaughn. This is the, hey, if you think he should be doing X or player Y should be getting more minutes, he went small. And you said it took a while to get to this point. They were doing a lot of blitzing defense, running a lot of double teams, willing to say, hey, we're going to try to stifle you ball handlers in and around the paint, and then trust that we can get back out to the outside when necessary. It wasn't perfect to start, but they stayed the course with it. And then as this game wore on, it started to actually become the reason why they were successful, including the smallest lineup that they could have put out there to close the game. And you mentioned the DM chat. Everyone in there was like, is this what we're going to do to close this? Yeah. And guess what? There's some key defensive sequences with Dennis Smith Jr. at times. There's Spencer Dinwiddie making the buckets on the other end. Like, if it works, it works. It's a result-oriented business. 193, you got the win. It was the right method.
Yeah, look, it was not great early, but like you said, there was a clear identity here, which is to say we're going to help up. They helped off Harden a few times. Like we're going to help off perimeter. And if mostly Kawhi, but if these guys get into the lane, we're going to bring the help there. And we are going to, like, if Russell Westbrook wants to shoot threes or shoot shots, literally go for it all game long. Gifted 5 Russell Westbrook threes in this, or 5 Russell Westbrook threes. We'll take that every single time. When Russ on this team, on this Clippers team, when Russ takes the most shots, you have a good chance to win. I say second most shots. When he takes the second most shots in this team, you have a chance to beat the Clippers. That's exactly what they did. They helped off him every time. They made sure if Kawhi got into the lane, there was always, every time there was another body. This is why the Nets were able to create so much dysfunction for the Clippers in the lanes, because there was just always another player that was in there swiping at the ball if anyone came close. The Nets do get lucky. The Clippers did run, even outside of Russ, ran pretty bad from 3 here. If you're over there on Locked On Clippers, you're saying to yourself, hey, how many games are Kawhi and PG going to shoot 3 for 16 from 3? Fair point. Like,
at least
some nights, that's okay. Nets have been dealt plenty of bad breaks on some shot making this year. So I'm not even going to say anything about it. But I think that defensive strategy, which was to say, muck it up in the mid range, help off guys that we are just are going to allow these other guys to shoot threes. And if they beat us that way, that's fine. That ultimately was the correct thing. And it was able to counteract the fact that that they clearly had like a better center on the interior. Because like the other thing too is like, hey, if you want to feed Zubac and not have Kawhi and PG shoot it, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Like go for it. We might lose this way, but you're going to have to beat us with Zoo and Russ and not the other guys. And I think that is ultimately correct.
There's actually a lot of meat left on the bone of this episode here. And since we want to stay entirely positive, we're going to talk even more about the Cam Thomas injury on Friday's episode too. Because there's a couple of things I do want to get to here. One, care of Brooklyn Nets PR. The Nets had a season high 14 offensive rebounds, resulting in 18 second chance points in this game. For the first time that I can remember, and probably lowballing it, 17 years, the Brooklyn Nets had 1, 2, 3 tap outs on perimeter shots, and they just kept getting second, third, and fourth looks until they finally got one to go. And it was like, yes, we deserve one of those sequences to finally go our way. And the other thing that I'll just highlight here, you mentioned the Paul George, Kawhi Leonard combined from the perimeter. Dorian Finney-Smith and Royce O'Neal, 4 for 8 apiece, 8 of 16 from beyond the arc, critical. And then the other one, man, how about this? 10 blocks in this game for the Brooklyn Nets. Day'Ron Sharpe didn't have any of them. 3 for DFS and for Royce, 2 for Bridges, 1 for Cam Thomas actually in this game, and 1 for Lonnie Walker. That was the helping defense that really allowed them to impact what they wanted to do on the interior on the offensive end for the Clippers. That's the last.
And a couple of key ones in transition too. Like this game was ugly. If this was the first game you ever watched in basketball, you never watched basketball. You got dropped in from outer space. You watch this one. You're like, hey, are there any other sports? Like it's just like, is there something else?
The only one I want, baby.
This was an incredibly ugly game. I mean, this was a total rock fight. And sometimes, that's what you kind of need. The Nets are going to need to play with this personnel. The Nets are going to need to play a lot of rock fight games.
Yeah.
That's fine. And I'm totally fine with it. But to call this a pretty win would be wrong.
Yes.
But they don't mark it pretty. They don't mark it pretty or ugly in the win column. They just mark it, 1 or a 0.
Last one for me before we close out, because I did want to get to this too. In the absence of, you needed facilitators here. Mikal Bridges, quiet shooting performance, 7 assists for him to go along with 4 for Spencer Dinwiddie, and also 5 for Dennis Smith Jr. Listen, and some of them you're saying, pal, there's got to be somebody else. But you need that. You needed to try to make up that gap in making sure you still have high assist rates, which the Nets have had all season long. So those 3 players combined for nearly 20 assists on their own, finding these perimeter shooters and getting guys set up really well. Just an excellent win, man. Getting to 500. They've now solved this really difficult stretch of games. You wanted to get one of these, you got one, and hopefully it carries some real big energy to Friday night against Boston.
100%, man. Just an awesome, again, I can't say this enough. Awesome win. All right, here's the deal. A couple of housekeeping things before we get over there into YouTube Live. First, join subtext.com/locked-on-Nets. We're just texting all day long about the Nets, having tons of conversations over there. Just really anything you want to talk about. People asking questions, people just kind of just celebrating even after this win. I already got a couple celebratory texts before it came through. Join the conversation, the insider conversation. Join subtext.com/locked-on-Nets. A reminder, too, that we're doing pregame previews over just on the podcast feeds. You're not going to get that on YouTube. You got to subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast, Locked On Nets. Leave us a review over there, too. It doesn't take, it takes you 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Leave a 5-star. By the way, 5 stars. If you're going to do something other than 5 stars, literally don't do it. But if you're going to go over there, leave a 5-star review. It takes you 2 seconds. Doesn't really cost you anything. Helps us a lot. And we are going to be back here on YouTube Live just in a second. I'm already going to put a moratorium. There are no asking for why didn't player X or Y play tonight. Okay. If you got a question loaded up, go load a question up in the YouTube Live at Locked On Nets. The question cannot be, after a win, why did player X, Y, or Z not play tonight? Great news. They didn't need to because the Nets won. Take us out of here, buddy.
It is always better to shock people and change expectations than to give them exactly what they think you can do. That's Jonah Hill.
Oh, one of the all-time great poets, my super bad buddy. We'll be back again tomorrow and in a second on YouTube Live talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.
Basketball. Brooklyn Nets win basketball. Yeah. Oh, buddy, it's the post-podcast podcast, my favorite intro to do. Everybody over in on YouTube. Now, Doug did set a very specific guideline here. So some of you frequent flyers absolutely love that you're in here on the action. We appreciate everyone. But let's stay focused. This is an absolutely awesome win for the Brooklyn Nets. It's an early season game against a Clippers team that's trying to figure out James Farton. I tried to coin that, Doug. I don't know if it's going to catch on, but
Would you say James Farton? I was reading some of these
James
things.
Farton. Like James Farton. I throw it out casually sometimes over on X, just to see. I think it'll get traction. But yeah, this is all about just celebrating it. And the one thing that I'll dial back on as we look through for some good questions and comments, you mentioned it about Sean Marks and about Lonnie Walker. Like this again is like come back to center, right? What are you best at? You're best at looking around the league, having people say, "Yeah, I don't know, maybe he's worth it. I'm not really looking to spend a lot of money on this guy." Come on home to Brooklyn. Yep. We've got exactly what you need. And in all of these lines cast out, hoping to find some successful players, the early returns are suggesting the Nets are probably going to have the good problem of having to make difficult decisions around some of these young guys going forward.
And we knew this was going to be what they were going to do, right? We're going to try out a bunch of these different guys. We were excited about some that never stuck, like Darius Baisley. It doesn't land. Okay, it's fine. Like this is what happens. You're taking flyers on guys who have some upside, and the downside is going to be that they don't make the team. Like these are the kind of dudes you take. Marks, when there was a different iteration of the team, had a pretty good and company had pretty good eyes for guys like this. It changed a little bit. It changed a little bit.
It's already happening.
Like during the KD Kyrie era, they had to fill the team up with, more veteran presence and kind of just guys who could probably be steadying force in the playoffs. Some of those guys worked out great. Jeff Green, right? Like Jeff Green almost had his first ring, and he won the one in Denver, but could have had another one. And he would have been a critical part. They had like sort of a death lineup with Jeff Green, but just go down the list: Dinwiddie, LeVert, Joe Harris, like these guys over and over again. They just kind of grabbed off the scrap heap. Bruce Brown, guys teams literally didn't want. And he turned them around and got them paid huge money. Yeah. And that is almost for sure going to happen again here with at least probably a minimum Lonnie Walker. If he keeps going. And he's going to start, if Cam Thomas is hurt, I mean, Lonnie Walker could start making a real push for 6th man of the year. And then like guys like Watford, I mean, we're going to see about Day'Ron, but there's already just a couple checks in the win column on guys who other teams kind of didn't want, and they're way outperforming expectation for the Nets.
Of course. And we know what that can mean for them in the short and long term. I'll briefly just mention here, because we'll talk about it on our Friday show, but obviously Cam Thomas went down with a left ankle injury, stepped on PJ Tucker's foot. So we'll see what comes back with that.
I think he's gonna miss some time here. That looks pretty bad. A minimum Boston, and I'd be shocked if. And now we just gotta wait to see high ankle sprain, low ankle. Like hopefully it's not high, and because that can be extended time missing. And
I said at the time that like I'm always slightly more optimistic when it's a young player as opposed to like a Kevin Durant, because these old ankles, they can't take these kind of blows, right? But the nature of it, you go look at the replay again if you want to. I'm not going to watch it again, but the way that he kind of limps around the court and then sits down on the court there is indicative of it maybe being pretty serious. But we'll see. Hopefully it's not that bad. And again, that's why you have Alani Walker to be able to step in and fill in this role over the short term. So we'll talk about that at more length on our mailbag episode. But I at least wanted to
let me hit some things up here. This one got a laugh out of me from Jared.
See? Jared, you're crushing it. You're on board with the farting. You're on board with it. There we go. We're good.
And then this one too. They
got it. Yeah, there you go. Dude, can I tell you? Hit another one here in a second, but like, can I tell you, those Knicks Nets games are going to be bananas this year. Like they are a completely different kind of vibe around those games now that the Nets are playing as well as they have early. Sorry, continue on.
Sorry, I clicked off this for 1 second. These were annoying. I usually don't go too crazy on the ref stuff because I tend to just think over the long term, the ref stuff just equals out. Like, they're going to miss some calls over the course of an 82 game season. It's probably just going to be 50-50. Maybe not if you don't. Like, probably be a little bit more if you have a star player, right? Because those guys just get more calls, but they also have the ball more, and that's just kind of what happens. This drove me nuts tonight. Like these two fouls from Harden, and you knew they screwed up when Mikal Bridges gets a technical. Like the ref screwed up. Like some guys, like Dinwiddie gets a technical. You're like, I don't know, coin flip. It could have, like, who knows? We're not sure.
This guy's jawing off when the tip doesn't go his way. So it's hard to say.
The guy's never seen a shot that he didn't think he got fouled on. So okay, Dinwiddie's one thing. When Mikal Bridges loses his mind,
Dinwiddie thinks he gets fouled while he's shooting free throws. There you go. Sorry.
Of course. And so when Mikal loses his mind, you're like, the ref's got to take it back because there's no way. Like, we just seen this guy play too much. So anyway, those were pretty annoying 2 non-calls, and I was gonna be real bitter about this if they ended up losing the game. Now I think the Clippers probably had some bones to kind of make here too, but bones to make. I don't know. But
pick
ultimate. I don't know if you make the bone. I can't remember what that saying is, but pick the bones. There you go. Bones to pick. Jeez, bones to make. My goodness, must be getting late. But ultimately,
cursed in reaction.
I gotta tell you right now, I never would have gotten bones to pick. Like I wouldn't have gotten it. I would have just gone. I was gonna go on. I think my brain's fried. Anyway, I was gonna be. Long story short, I was gonna be really, really pissed if they lost, and because I would have blamed the fouls, and I almost never do that.
You know what? When you were talking too about the Day'Ron Sharpe energy, right? Guys, he's a little bit on the edge, right? I think Trendon Watford is also kind of right there a little bit too. If you go and look, like he doesn't have a great defensive rating for his young career, but he was there on the perimeter with Harden in his face, and he's haunched down. He's clapping the hands. Like, let's go. Like, he's like, I've had a cup of coffee in the league. You want a piece of me? And I just like, you need those kind of guys. We talked about this like last year. That's why you like Day'Ron, because you're like, man, this guy's he's psychotic about getting rebounds. Like, you need someone who's a little bit on the edge. And I think Dorian Finney-Smith is like this too, right? Like, this dude has a bit of nasty to him. When like there's a physical play to get made, he makes the physical play. He's not terribly interested in checking in on if you're all right. He's like, yeah, that's right. I threw you to the ground. You going to get up and keep playing or not? Like, that's a part of the personality with some of these new players and holdovers from the trades last year that I've really enjoyed early in the season and in this game.
Oh, and by the way, I missed one of these too, because this one, let me just show this real quick. Yeah, this Watford one. We mentioned it before, but in case you're jumping in before, I was like, come on. Like, get out of here. Calling an offensive foul on that is such a crime. Yeah. You just recognize the moment for a second. Like the PJ Tucker, by the way, I hate those charges. I hate the charge where like you just, I get it's the rule, whatever. You would never do it in pickup. Like you would never, no one would ever do this. And if this happened to you in pickup, you would never, ever call a charge. Right, like ever, and so if you wouldn't do it there,
for your flat attack at the Y,
you would get laughed out.
Bro.
You get laughed out of the gym. Like if you said "duck charge" as someone just
Trucks you on a poster.
Deposited their groin in your face on a dunk, and you were like, nope, got there, charge. No,
Nope.
come on, please. Like, there's just there's no way. Okay, let me
yeah, those are ridiculous though.
Okay, this is a good one. How's the offense going to survive if Cam Thomas is out for a while? So, you want to take this one, and I can give it a second one because I just kind of mentioned that Watford thing.
Oh yeah, no. Listen. You saw tonight. It's Lonnie Walker is going to be man number one up because he has the most quote 1-to-1 ability with it. And then in theory, this is Mikal Bridges. Like, go back to doing what you were doing last year after the trade when you were the primary and when you had to do the bulk of the scoring. We've already seen this work for this team. They were a net positive rating with that collection of 5 players last year and him doing it. I think the difference here would be probably they've leaned so much more heavily into the perimeter shooting that it's going to be about balancing it out and having the guys from the outside knock. I don't think there's any like, who's the one guy that replaces the dude that was giving you 25 to 30 points a night, sometimes 45 points a night. You don't, but that's not what this team is built around.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more Dinwiddie. I mean, the minutes for him, I actually wonder if he's on like something like a minutes restriction because the minutes have been really low even in situations where you think that they just wouldn't be, right? And I don't think like it's a shooting thing or like he doesn't have it kind of thing. I mean, Jacques Vaughn probably plays a little hot hand, but like for Dinwiddie to only have 26 minutes in this game, and he had really low minutes the last game, I am kind of wondering if there's like some kind of implied minutes limit with him and that they're just kind of adhering to because these are really low minutes. For a guy that has been generally good.
And he had the little injury, so maybe they're just quietly keeping an eye on it. And but it is
he's going to have to play a lot better. Without Thomas, he's going to have to play a lot better. And that's pretty clear. I mean, they're going to play Boston here. They're going to be huge underdogs in Boston. My guess is, even without seeing the injury report, I mean, Claxton and Cam might be getting close because they were recalled from the G League today. And so I wonder if they're getting closer to questionable than they are to doubtful going into Friday's game. We'll see. But still been both ruled out really quickly, so I'm not sure how close we are on them. But anyways, go ahead.
No, just on the Cameron Johnson one, it makes sense because it's 10 days to reevaluate, whatever. The weird thing about the Nicholas Claxton one was like, I was dealing with a glute, we're keeping an eye on it. Then somewhat randomly, it's like, I've been dealing with an ankle sprain. Oh, okay, shoot, what is that going to look like? And now, to your point, it's like, well, now they're being recalled, so he's probably closer than further. You can just never tell. I was in our network channel meeting earlier today, and we had that moment where all the hosts were like, don't worry, it's everybody, it's every organization. No one's giving you the good information, the straight talk around injuries. So who knows? I guess maybe Claxton is closer than farther away. And it's going to be critical with now at least some type of small concern around Ben Simmons as well.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll probably end up seeing more Dinwiddie here. Obviously, Lonnie Walker. I don't think they'll move Lonnie Walker into the starting lineup. If Cam, I think they'll probably just go like him off the bench and go something like, although am I missing a guy now? It would be
Mikal, Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer.
Maybe Dinwiddie. Lonnie Walker will start. I take that back. Maybe he would.
It could get, frankly, Friday night could get weird in a hurry. If Thomas is out and say Ben Simmons is going to be out again. Now you have to walk into a totally different door for how your starting 5 looks, and then what
it's so brutal. These injuries are so bad. I mean, my goodness, like I just can't. I mean, they're already down to like their 11th guy, and it's the 8th game of the season or something like that. Like no other team, I'm pretty sure. I mean, maybe the Pelicans. Like I'm trying to think of like other teams. Actually, let me look at these other teams real quick because I can tell you from doing the basketball projections. I'll tell you if any other team is anywhere close to the Nets in terms of like lost minutes so far from guys that were supposed to play. For sure the Pelicans because like they lost CJ, Zion's missed some games, Ingram missed some games, so I'll put them in that group. But I don't think any other team. I mean, Cleveland a little early with Allen and Garland, but those guys are back now. And that's, obviously Denver just lost Jamal Murray, but they still kind of have everybody. Like most of these teams, sorry, I know I'm kind of just doing this off the cuff. But most of no AD for LA tonight, but like every team like loses a guy for a game or two, right? For the number of minutes out of like the salaries that the Nets have that they are going to now be missing salaries plus production. I don't think any other team, except for maybe the Pelicans, is anywhere. Yeah, I just went through all the teams. Oh, okay, never mind. The Suns. I mean, the Suns with Beal and Booker. So that one's up there too. That one's
Whatever.
probably more.
Yeah,
That
but
one's
like, but
more.
they don't
Okay.
even have like real high aspirations this year. That team doesn't matter.
Okay, so I'll put. Sorry, that was an error by me. I'll put them first because you just that they losing Beal and Booker is just like that. Nets aren't in that situation. And then I'd probably say the Pelicans and then the Nets, and it's probably pretty close. But like that, they're just like this is like crazy to be this far in the bag so early on injury stuff. It just stinks. Anyway, so I don't know where I was going with that.
54 minutes combined for Cameron Johnson and Nicholas Claxton this year. That's how many minutes they've played. Like, they one game for each of them. That's all that we've been able to see from them. And
I'll tell you too, the Simmons thing is a little concerning to me because we didn't talk about Simmons at all. We'll probably talk about him more on tomorrow's podcast because like whatever, but it's a win. But now that we're just like in YouTube live and we're going a little long here, the Simmons one's a concern too. A late add to the injury, left hip soreness, so it's not the back. It's not the back or the knees. It's something like a little different, and he might have been grabbing at this last game. But this, I think, is a pretty new injury for him. And I always get worried with this stuff because he's had back issues, and back issues can cascade to other parts of your body like pretty quickly. So it's like it's not even an anti-Simmons thing. I just worry. Like I want him to be playing.
Yeah.
And I always get a little worried when these things get added late. So and for him to already he missed the one game with maintenance, but now this was like not a maintenance one. This was like an injury. So we'll see. I mean, they'll probably release some medicals tomorrow, and we'll have more information then hopefully.
And if those guys are out on Friday, including Simmons, it's going to be.
They're going to be like 13. They're going to be like 10-point underdogs is my guess. Maybe like 9.
But my point is like it's going to be some version of Spencer Dinwiddie, Mikal Bridges, Dorian Finney-Smith, probably Royce O'Neal gets put into the starting lineup, and then like you mentioned, you could go Lonnie Walker into the starting lineup, and like this probably sounds far afield, but like you could end up with Dennis Smith Jr. being the starting lineup because you need somebody to be a ball handler for you as well. Like now you've lost all your ball handlers, and I know Dinwiddie will be in there, but like the 1-to-1 of what he's been doing more for this team lately and being off ball a bit, the shooting hasn't quite been there. I'll be fascinated to see, and because the team has generally chosen to run small in these scenarios, it's going to be Friday night could be a very interesting watch. But
by the way, we didn't mention. I didn't. Maybe you did a little bit. We probably didn't talk enough about Dennis Smith Jr. tonight, but I would say tonight was a full Dennis Smith Jr. experience because on the one hand, he took some horrible shots.
Yes,
horrible shots.
Disgusting.
Like shots that like the Clippers were just dying for him to take. He took them, like they baited him into it, and even one they didn't even bait him into it. He just kind of thought he was cooking.
He baited himself into it.
But on the other hand, his defense was so pestering.
Yep.
And was critical to what we just talked about with the Nets, like just really mucking it up for the Clippers, like sort of on the interior and even on the perimeter when they were trying to just sort of get into some stuff. Dennis Smith Jr., he was like he did tonight exactly what you signed him on for, which was to play pestering defense and maybe just try to get out and transition a little bit. And he definitely did that. So I don't know. We kind of skipped over him when we were mentioning the 3 other bench guys, and that was probably an error because I thought had a good game. Again, not like it's not going to pop off of you because the shooting was bad, but what he brought on the defensive end was like really, really important against especially guys like Harden in this one.
Yeah, and you can't. It's funny. His season,
oh, there you go. Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Sorry. Yeah, did I star this one or no?
Yes, you did. Yeah. So I think you had it in your mind that you wanted to, and then listen.
I mean, I get lost. Okay, so maybe Jonathan just put this in my head and then whatever. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
But the other thing, but the point being is like this season, it's not going to like Dennis Smith Jr.'s season is going to be about games like this. Now, take away 1 or 2 of the bad shots, right? Go 2 of 5 from the field instead of 7. But this is what it's going to be. This is why they brought him in. Is you are going to come in the fourth quarter or in key sequences and be this defensive pest. And it was good because we hadn't seen that really. Like I was watching him in some of the other games when he came in defensively, and I thought, okay, I mean, he looks like one of the guys out there. He's playing fine. But this was when we were like, okay, there you go. You go out and be a problem for the primary ball handler on the opposite side, and it's going to lead to some real opportunities on the other end.
One more thing too from Jonathan too. He said hip and back are different things. I'm aware of that. I'm saying that when you have a back injury, a back injury can lead to other can lead to other injuries and other byproducts because your body starts not functioning the same way it's always been for it's like your whole life, and especially when you're finely tuned like these guys are, and these their bodies are just I mean, obviously they're totally insane and like in a good way. And they just are operating like very specifically for your whole life. When you have back injuries, they can sometimes mean that you start operating in a slightly different way, and sometimes it doesn't take much. I mean, that's not what's happening here. I'm just saying that like I get of all the injuries. I mean, obviously like catastrophic like knee injuries and stuff, but the backs always worry me because they just usually just don't stop at the back. And sometimes they are not as easy to diagnose as just torn ACL. Here's the recovery. It's going to take 6 months, whatever it is. You're just going to be fine. Business as usual. Like now, like the back just is a different thing. So anyway, that's just me thinking that, but that's where I'm coming from on
You
that.
guys can finish the lyrics in your own heads, right? My neck, my back, and then it continues to go down the line there, and it's always a problem. The other thing I'll just note here, if you want to go slightly optimistic, one, Ben Simmons played a lot of minutes, early in the year and coming back from his injuries and all that good stuff. And then also with the rules about the resting and what you can and can't do, that the NBA is trying to mitigate that. Remember, they have discouraged you resting your best players when they're on the road. So the Nets may have been trying to it's like, how do we thread the needle of manufacturing some downtime here for Ben Simmons, knowing he'll be out the court there on Friday night. My concern is just that over the first month plus of the season, you're going to see Simmons still reacclimating himself physically to just the day-to-day grind. He's never going to do like what he's going to do this season. He hasn't done it yet in a Brooklyn Nets uniform. He hasn't done it yet since he's coming back from this injury. You expect him to be out there for 30 plus minutes every single night primarily. So there's definitely something there, but I don't know. All I can do is wait and then say the Nets are better without him, right? And that's it.
No. You can't do that. I do really hope he's okay. The Nets again,
Yes,
could
yeah.
really they need him. I for as much as we've like kind of picked apart parts of his game this year, and I think we've definitely done that. I think to say that the Nets are better without him is wrong. So and believe me, there's some numbers that suggest something different, but I think that's would be wrong to say. So I think that I really hope he's back here Friday. They really need him.
Do you we can get out of here in a minute, but do you know who Paul George. Oh, so close. I was going to say Lonnie Walker led everyone in scoring. Only Paul George with 24 had more points than Lonnie Walker.
Yeah, we'll just ignore him.
I know, right?
Man, I gotta say, this is always a hard part. We're coming up in an hour here. We got a lot of people in chat, and I really, I always hate jumping out here. So if you want to just throw up like one or two more questions, did I leave all the stuff?
And by the way, it's always like Doug's the one that wants to go. I'm the one that wants to stay. I'm the parent that loves you. He's the one that's neglectful. Just want to make sure we get that very clear here.
Yeah, something like that. I actually didn't realize that this was their first. I guess I never followed this stuff. I didn't realize this was their first home win of the season. That's interesting.
Touche, Mark. We have no superstars. I don't think that rule applies. That's fair. Maybe the superstar rest rule doesn't apply.
Actually, no. But by that rule, the only guy who actually qualified for that was Simmons.
I know, right? Simmons, yeah, because of all the past metrics.
He was the only guy because he was like third team All NBA like 4 years ago or something like that, or 3 years ago. So he was the only guy that qualified for the no resting. I'll say this: the NBA has been good. These guys have been playing. I mean, these guys, the Clippers guys played the back-to-backs. I mean, the only guys that I can think of that sat. So I mean, Simmons sat, Butler sat a game. Oh no, Butler. No, I take that back. Butler played that game. I think they've been pretty good about this. I'm trying to think. Is like any other rest? Maybe a couple guys in here and there, but like nothing major. So it's been kind of working. Good for them.
Well, isn't it? I mean, like, and it is a good thing. But they've been playing. The superstars have been playing. Oh,
basketball. It's insane. Okay, right. It's insane. We're anchored in all the agreed. Right, we're anchored in all the wrong place for this because it's like, hey. Someone put a great, I think it was Josh Eberly, who's like a Pistons guy, and a really good follow on Twitter. But he had said, imagine if it was like Patrick Mahomes, rest week 4, might return week 5. Like it was something like that. It was like how insane it would sound if you put the same language, like rest and recovery, week 4, see you in another week, around another sport. Like you would just never do. It would sound. He just put it so perfectly because it was like exactly. If you wrote it like this, it would sound so nuts. But hey,
do it on the scale of like just for the sake of the humor. Do it on the scale of the NBA. It's 82 games, right? So it's only 17 games in the NFL. It'd be like Patrick Mahomes, quarter 2, rest, eligible to return in quarter 4. Like if you just sat these down for the middle of the game, right? Like it just
sounds crazy. And the NBA has totally screwed themselves by getting themselves into this situation where it was so insane that they had to make a rule that you had to play. I mean, it does when you put it like that. It's like, hey, we're going to have to make a rule that you have to play the games. Okay. So if you guys could just go out and play the games, that'd be really nice to have to make a rule around that. But thankfully, it does seem to be, it looks like most people got the memo here. Yeah. And they are, at least now, November 8th. We'll see where we are in April around this. But at least for now, they are playing.
Just a note here. Yeah, next thing is, of course, win the next match in the in-season tournament. It's an easy task. Be down 5
Is that Friday?
starters.
Is Friday another
Friday is the next in-season tournament match. So yeah, and just if anyone didn't know, Fridays and Tuesdays, those are the in-season tournament matches for every single team, and then it just breaks up which weeks you're playing or not. And by the end of November, the group stage will all be done, and then it's December. They'll be having the semifinals, the finals down in Vegas. So. And the Nets can either do one of two things: win it outright, or they can also get one of the have the best non-group winning wild card record. So there's a couple ways.
Boston lost the other night, so it can be done. Also, nice job by Jean-Claude here, because shout out to all the players who battle hard and get the win tonight. I don't think the players are watching, but it was this next part that I wanted to get to. Too much talk in the comments about players who weren't playing. Jean-Claude, good job. We purposely did not calling up these ones. I said it before. Maybe you missed the beginning of this. I said not going to be calling up any comment where someone says, why didn't X, Y, or Z play a game where the Nets won? I'll never understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. But if you came into the chat, I'm not even gonna say these players' names. If you came into the chat and mentioned want to see more of this guy on the bench after the Nets just beat the Clippers, it's time to check the priorities. I just don't know. I don't know what we're living on different basketball planets. So you might want to just go back to wherever the one you came from was, because we just don't need it here.
Jean-Claude, one of our new frequent flyers here on the post game podcast. Appreciate it. And then I'll just note this, because we always like to do these little editing notes. Tomorrow you're going to get by tomorrow. No, our normal episode will go out. Yeah, this is tomorrow's episode effectively.
Yeah, this is Thursday's episode
on the pod around 11 o'clock. Friday's episode will go up. And then on Friday, by midday, you'll also be getting the game day preview of the Boston Celtics matchup as well. So you got another one coming tomorrow night, a midday show on Friday, and then the post-game podcast on Friday night. We got a lot to do, Doug.
We're going to talk about that post-game one because I'm going to be traveling, but we'll talk about that. We'll figure that one out. Okay. We are going to get out of here. It's Friday nights, man. We got to take a night here and there. Okay. We are going to get out of here. Love everyone that's been in this, the chat, people just coming in here. Go ahead.
No. And Friday is the mailbag episode. I know we've mentioned the subtext and joining there over on Locked On /Locked On Nets. Go do that, because we're pulling mailbag questions out of there as well. We're going to be talking about how do you survive without Cam Thomas, depending on how long it is. There's a couple of the really good questions in there, including we can think about what has Spencer Dinwiddie's role been over these last handful of games. So just mailbag if you want to be in on that, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitter, whether it is going to join subtext.com/LockedOnNets and getting in some of those, because we're going to be doing that on Friday.
All right, buddy. That's it. Much appreciated, everyone that's in here on YouTube. If you are not subscribed, if for some insane reason you're in this chat and not subscribed on YouTube, I'm just going to give you 3 seconds here. We're going to go silent. You're going to go over to the page on YouTube, and you're going to hit subscribe, and that's all you have to do. If I don't see a huge influx of subscribers, I'm going to be disappointed at everyone in chat. Much appreciated, everyone that jumped in here. We love talking Nets basketball. We're going to do some network stuff here, and then we'll be back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.
Better see that spike. Basketball.